You know, the dream of living a longer life. It's literally as old as civilization itself. But for the very first time in human history, that ancient dream is moving out of the realm of myth and straight into the laboratory. We are living in what scientists are calling a golden era for aging research, a time when we're finally actually starting to crack the code of why and how we age. So, what have we discovered? Let's dive in.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll take a quick look back at the ancient search for longevity. Then, we're going to jump into the modern science, decoding our biological clocks and getting to know our body's own repair crew. And finally, we'll see how it's all coming together to shape a pretty revolutionary new future for what it means to get older.
All right, let's kick things off with that timeless human quest. For thousands of years, we've been looking for a way to turn back the clock.
I mean, just think about the Qin dynasty in ancient China. The emperor was so obsessed, he sent out huge expeditions to find a mythical elixir of life. The crazy part? Their potions were often super toxic, packed with stuff like mercury and arsenic. It's a pretty stark contrast to the super precise science we're using today, right?
In this timeline, wow, it really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? Look at that massive gap from ancient myths all the way to the 1940s when the first official aging research unit was formed. Things definitely picked up speed from there, with the National Institute of Aging getting its start in '74. But then boom, 1988. This was the real game changer, when scientists identified the very first gene that could directly control how long something lives. Our scientific journey might be short, but man, the progress has been incredibly fast.
And all that rapid progress brings us right to our next stop, decoding our biological clocks. This is where the science gets really fascinating, because it's full of all these interesting clues and some really surprising paradoxes.
Okay, so for a long time, one of the biggest ideas out there was the mitochondrial dysfunction theory. And it makes a lot of sense, right? Our mitochondria are the little power plants inside our cells. So the theory was, as we get older, these power plants start to break down. That means less energy and more damaging waste, which causes aging. Simple enough. Well, of course, science loves a good plot twist. Researchers started noticing something that didn't quite fit. Sometimes slowing down mitochondrial function just a tiny bit could actually make an organism live longer. So what on earth was going on? This led to this really cool idea called hormesis. The best way to think about it is like exercise for your cells. A small, controlled amount of stress, what they call a judicious inhibition, acts like a workout. It doesn't actually weaken the cells. Instead, it kicks on their internal survival and repair systems, making the whole system tougher and more resilient for the long haul.
And you know what? It wasn't just our ideas about mitochondria that got a major update. Another really famous idea, the free radical theory of aging, you've probably heard of it, the idea that damage from unstable molecules makes us age. Well, that turned out to be too simple too.
So the big takeaway here is that the old idea, free radicals are bad, is just way too simple. We've learned that some of these molecules are actually really important messengers inside our cells. And get this, sometimes boosting our antioxidant systems too much can actually be harmful. It's not about getting rid of a bad guy, it's about maintaining a really delicate balance. All this talk about balance and repair, well, it leads us perfectly into our next section, the body's own internal repair crew, and how our cells literally clean house to stay healthy. Okay, the start of the show here is a process called autophagy. You can think of it as your cell's ultimate quality control system and recycling program, all rolled into one. It's the system that hunts down old, damaged parts, breaks them down, and recycles the raw materials. It is absolutely essential for keeping our cells clean and running like they should.
And the process itself? It's just beautifully efficient. It's basically 3 steps. First, the cell identifies and puts a flag on all the cellular junk. Next, it wraps all that junk up in a tiny biological trash bag. And finally, that little bag gets sent off to the cellular recycling center, where everything inside gets broken down into reusable building blocks.
And get this, there's even a super specialized version of this called mitophagy. This process specifically goes after and recycles old, worn-out mitochondria, those cellular power plants we were talking about. This makes sure our energy production stays clean and efficient, which, as we now know, is so important. Okay, but here's the catch, and it's a big one. As you can see from this chart, the efficiency of this incredible cleanup system goes down as we get older. In aging tissues, autophagy just slows down. And that means damaged bits and toxic junk start to pile up, and that's a huge driver of age-related diseases. So, that's the problem, right? Our natural cleanup systems start to fail. The big question is, what can we do about it? And that brings us to our final section, the new era for aging research, and the incredible tools that are giving scientists a ton of hope for the future. This is where things get really exciting. For the first time ever, scientists have this incredible toolkit that lets them see the entire picture of aging. With technology like CRISPR gene editing and all these advanced omics fields, they can now study the ridiculously complex inner workings of our cells at a level of detail that was just science fiction a decade ago. And this is where it all clicks into place. We can now see how metabolism, that cellular balance we talked about, and our internal cleanup crews are all deeply connected. And by understanding these connections, researchers can pinpoint specific ways to step in, from things like dietary changes to developing new compounds that could help boost these vital systems as we get older. You know, all of this points to a really fundamental shift in how we even think about aging research. The goal isn't just about adding more years to our life anymore, it's about adding more life to our years. The new focus is all about extending our health span. That's the period of our lives that we spend in good health, without chronic disease. And the potential here, it's just staggering. The progress is happening so fast that some scientists in this field are actually suggesting that the first person who will live to be 150 has already been born. Now, that is a wild prediction, I know, but it just shows you the level of optimism in this new golden era. So this really leaves us with a pretty deep question to think about. As science keeps unlocking the secrets of aging, potentially stretching our healthy years far beyond what we ever thought possible, it kind of forces all of us to ask ourselves, what does a long, healthy life actually mean to me? And what would I do with all that extra time?